Apple is now 50 years old and it's changed the very way we all interact with the world. Yes, that sounds hyperbolic, but it's true. How did it get to this grand old age? Apple took huge chances and revolutionized a few industries. Piece of cake. In 2007, Apple introduced the world to its take on a phone. At the time, BlackBerry devices were all the rage. People would be furiously typing away on their physical keyboards. There were plenty of competitors too, including the Samsung Blackjack. Microsoft's Windows Mobile was also out there. On January 9th, 2007, Apple CEO Steve Jobs gave a presentation talking about a touchscreen iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator.
This is a day I've been looking forward to for 2.5 years.
He revealed that he wasn't talking about 3 different devices, but one, the iPhone, a touchscreen phone that started at $499 for a 4GB model or $599 for an 8GB model. And you needed a 2-year contract to get those prices. Famously, Microsoft head and now Clippers owner Steve Ballmer essentially laughed at the iPhone due to its high prices.
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world.
Windows phones could be bought for around $100. Remember that the original iPhone did not have an app store. You just got what Apple gave you and web apps. The phone itself is only part of the revolution. The cellular business was locked down by carriers. Carriers had all kinds of leverage to install their software or add all their logos over whatever phones they offered. Apple, being Apple, did not want to play this game. Instead, opting to partner with Singular Wireless, which is now AT&T, Singular was basically hands-off, and Apple comes up with this glass rectangle. The iPhone becomes a monster hit with the dawn of the App Store. Apple showed that a company with no phone experience could just become a huge player in the game. This made other companies more bold. Google bought and developed Android as an iOS alternative. Touchscreen phones became the norm, and there were plenty of competitors, including the Samsung Galaxy line. The iPhone would not have existed if not for the iPad project. Now, Apple was working on a touchscreen interface for a tablet. Steve Jobs explained that he wanted to get rid of the keyboard and type on a glass multi-touch display. So Jobs tasks his team to make this display. They produced a prototype within 6 months.
I actually started on a tablet first. And I had this idea of being able to get rid of the keyboard, type on a multi-touch glass display. And I asked our folks, could we come up with a multi-touch display that we type on, I could rest my hands on and actually type on. And about 6 months later, they called me in and showed me this prototype display. And I gave it to one of our other really brilliant UI folks. And he called me back a few weeks later, and he had inertial scrolling working. And when I saw the rubber band inertial scrolling and a few of the other things, I thought, my God, we can build a phone out of this. And I put the tablet project on the shelf because the phone was more important.
But the tablet didn't stay on the shelf forever. Think about the iPad, a tablet computer that could just be an overgrown phone or a poor excuse for a computer. Tablet PCs were already a thing starting in 2002, 2003. Microsoft introduced Windows XP Tablet PC Edition. You could interact with it using a stylus. The iPad arrives in 2010, so Apple was already very late to the party. But because of Apple's strict guidelines, the iPad became more than just a big phone or lousy computer. It was its own thing for consuming media, reading, or getting light work done. Apps use the iPad's larger display with different layouts to take advantage of all that space. Meanwhile, Android tablets suffered because it lacked tablet-specific apps. Google still has not figured out Android tablets. It's 2026. To many people, iPad means any tablet. Microsoft wanted to correct that with its Surface tablets and signed a huge NFL deal. Surface tablets were everywhere, in the kickoff show, the postgame, and on the sidelines. What did Microsoft get for its money? Announcers called the Surface an iPad, or an iPad-like tool. Chicago Bears quarterback Jay Cutler had to use the Surface tablets because of the NFL deal. On his radio show, he called them knock-off iPads. That Microsoft NFL deal was reported to be worth around $400 million. The iPad is so normal as a term that no one laughs that it's called the iPad anymore. But the Apple iPhone or iPad wouldn't exist if it were not for the success of the Apple iPod. It was not the first MP3 player, but it did something other MP3 players couldn't. It could hold 1,000 songs in your pocket. The company Toshiba built a tiny 1.8-inch hard drive, but could not find a use case for it. Sure enough, Apple found one. They put these tiny drives into a music player. The interface was a key success to the iPod. How do you manage hundreds of songs with a tiny screen? Why reinvent the wheel when you could just use a wheel? Apple's click wheel made navigating through menus and songs as easy as possible at the time. Apple also used a USB competitor called FireWire, also known as IEEE 1394, to connect the iPod to a computer. At the time, FireWire was much faster than USB, around 30 times faster. The first iPod had a full-sized FireWire connector on the top. That gave way to the 30-pin dock connector, which eventually became Lightning, and you know how the rest goes. Added to all of this, Apple ushered in cheap music downloads through iTunes. Instead of heading to Napster or LimeWire for files that may or may not be music files, it could just be a whole bunch of junk, you could head to iTunes and buy a song for under $1. Apple had a great music player and a great way to get music to you. But Apple wouldn't have even existed to make the iPod without the iMac. You might not know this, but Apple was on the brink of collapsing in the 90s. Steve Jobs just came back to the company in 1996 after he was ousted in 1985. The company was struggling, like bankruptcy struggling. In 1997, Michael Dell, the Dell behind Dell Computers, was asked what he would do to fix Apple. He said, quote, "What would I do? I'd shut it down and give the money back to the shareholders." Apple didn't do that. In 1998, Apple unveiled the blobular iMac, an all-in-one computer. They had Jeff Goldblum narrate a commercial to show how easy it is to get online with an iMac. For real, look at this.
Step 1, plug in. Step 2, get connected. Step 3, there's no step 3. There's no step 3.
This computer saved Apple. Also, its stores helped. Apple stores let you try out the products, get some real hands-on time. You could play around with Apple products, and the Apple people would just help you. If you wanted to mess with a computer back in the early 2000s, they were either locked down or dummy units that you couldn't even use. Now look, Apple is not perfect. There were the Scully years, the iPod Hi-Fi, iPod socks. I am not sure about the Apple Vision Pro yet, but I am sure that I am Ayaz Akhtar, and I'll see you online.